Hello, my friends. Welcome back in for another video talking about U.S. Soccer Federation and how we're going to fix the game in the U.S. But wait a minute, that's not the USSF logo. You're right. That's the Mexican Football Federation logo. And we're here today to talk about something very important that impacts the conversation in the United States, which we'll get to at the end of the video. But if you've not heard because you've been living under a football rock, the Mexican Football Federation has announced intentions to have a discussion at the next owners meeting about pausing Pro Rel for 4 years in Mexico. Now, this is a big deal. So the first thing I want to talk to you about, we're going to list out all the reasons why they're doing this, and then we're going to kind of break them down and give some counterpoints to those. So first reason is they're not eliminating Pro Rel. That's been kind of talked about a little bit, like, oh, they're canceling Pro Rel. It's like, it's a pause, and it hasn't even gone through. Like, it has to be approved by the owners and like at the owners meeting and all that kind of stuff. But they're talking about pausing it for 4 years right now. But we'll talk about that here in a second. The second thing is, okay, so in Mexico, you've got Liga MX and you've got Ascensio MX, okay? Ascensio MX has got 16 teams, right? Only 6 of the 16 teams meet the Mexican Football Federation's regulations in terms of stadium size, youth development, facilities, stuff like that, to actually be able to be promoted back to Liga MX. So you've got 6 teams that even have a shot at getting promoted, and 10 that don't. That's a problem, right? Like, so if you come in first and you're one of those 10 teams that doesn't meet the requirements, you can't get promoted despite having earned that promotion. Okay. The third thing is the owners want their teams to be more valuable. And one of the articles I read said that they are looking at MLS teams who have gone from like $10 million in value to $150 million in value because, MLS has continued to ratchet up the expansion fee. And they're going, oh, that seems kind of nice. But I think that's a flawed argument too. Okay, so let's go back to the pause. A pause of Pro Rel can very quickly turn into elimination of Pro Rel, right? Like, if you pause it for 4 years and people get used to it, and let's say they see the club values go up 10% or something like that, you could very easily say as the owners, like, well, my club's gone up in value. Like, sorry to those 16 teams in the second division, but I kind of like my club going up in value. So yeah, let's just get rid of Pro Rel completely and, have a good one. That's a huge risk of even considering this type of a move. The second thing about the teams not being eligible to be promoted, that's a big problem. But pausing Pro Rel isn't going to fix that problem. So if I'm one of those 10 clubs that doesn't have the right size stadium or doesn't have the right youth programs or the right facilities or whatever, you're gonna prevent me from getting promoted. So why would I in turn invest in my club and my facilities and my youth programs and my stadium if it's not going to earn me any return? Like, if I can't get promoted, like if I go from a 6,500 seat stadium to a 20,000 seat stadium, but I can't get promoted to fill up that stadium, why would I invest in the first place? So it's actually doing the opposite. If you're trying to encourage those teams to meet those requirements to where they can, through regulations, they're allowed to come up to Liga MX, you've just eliminated my interest in investing in that. That's a huge, like, you're doing the opposite of what you should be doing if that's the case. We'll talk about a potential solution here in a second. Okay. In terms of the owners wanting their clubs to be more valuable, totally understandable, right? That's an investment. They want their investment to grow and become more valuable. So eventually they can sell the club and make a profit. Makes sense, but they're looking at the wrong clubs as options of value, right? You're looking to MLS, which has 22, 24 teams, whatever it is now, right? Because all the expansion announcements. You're missing the clubs in Europe that are worth much more than the $150 million because they've got healthy footballing systems at all levels, and there's promotion relegation, which encourages investment and all that good stuff. Now, is that going to be weighted heavily towards like the English Premier League? Yes, of course. But it's not like the other countries and other leagues aren't doing pretty well in terms of value as well. Like the Bundesliga is doing pretty well in terms of club values. Another problem with this, in Mexico, owners can just buy another top division team and move it to their city and rename it to the name of the club that just got relegated. So if I'm the owner of a first division team that gets relegated, I can essentially say I'm not interested in having that team anymore, and I'm going to buy a first division team over here in this other city, and we're going to move into my city, and we're just going to change the names like we never got relegated. That's a massive loophole that should be closed, to not obviously allow that. Another problem with the Mexican Pro Rel, and so like I'm okay with them fixing it or encouraging different ways of getting investment into the game. Like that makes sense. That's their prerogative. But in Mexico, Pro Rel is based off of your team's average points over the last 3 years. So what that does, so like if you have a really good 2-year, like you finish in 3rd place 2 years in a row, and then the 3rd year you finish last, you're probably you're not going to get relegated because you've got the average number of points over those last 3 years is probably pretty high because you finished 3rd, right? So what that system does is it prevents, big teams in the top division from getting relegated because of one bad season. But it also prevents lower division teams from getting promoted, like the quality ones from getting promoted, and from, if they get promoted, from staying up, because now it's based off, like, they only have one season, right? They don't have the previous 2 seasons in the league to be able to say like, well, our average was enough to stay up. It's like if you get promoted, it's almost like you have to get promoted twice. You have to get promoted and then you have to finish not last, which is hard if you just got promoted. So it's over a 3-year span, but my understanding is if you're that team that just got promoted into the league, your 3 years, well, your average the first year is your average for the past 3 years because you didn't have 2 other years in the top division, if that makes sense. And so that means a lot of those teams are going to probably go back down because that they have one shot. If they finish last, they go right back down. So it's protecting those really good teams, which is, okay, you're going to protect your good teams, but it also prevents the drama and the excitement because it's over a 3-year span. So like where I think the English Premier League and the Bundesliga and other leagues in the world get it right is you can come down to the final 5-6 games of the season and you don't know who's going up and who's going down. And those teams are scrapping and fighting every game to get a point, to get 3 points in order to stay up. If you go over the last 3 years, you go like, well, we were pretty good the other 2 years. Like, if we have a bad season, we have a bad season. Tough. And it eliminates a lot of that drama. And I think that drama drives fans to go to games, which helps your attendance, which helps your income, which helps the value of the club, and it kind of reinforces those things. Tying into that, in the English Premier League, if a team gets relegated, because it's not based on 3 years, it's based on 1 year's results, they get a parachute payment. That essentially is to help them financially with the loss of sponsorship dollars. They're going to lose some players. They're probably going to have to sell some players at below their value. Like, it's going to impact the club financially, so that Premier League says, like, here's a big chunk of money so that you can absorb some of that financial cost, and hopefully you'll get promoted right back up. So Liga MX could do something like that in order to protect, if they go from 3 years to 1 year, to protect those big teams that went down, to help them come right back up. But I'd like to see them do something else also that's kind of the reverse of that. So they have a problem with the second division teams, coming up and not having the facilities and not having the stadium size and not meeting those requirements. Well, okay, so you can give the team that got relegated, here's a payment. Here's the team that gets promoted, here's a payment for you to invest, and you have 1 year to invest to get your stadium up to par or your youth facilities up to par or something like that. Or you could, if you don't want to give them a payment, you could give them a grace period. Like, you have 2 years to get your facilities up to our standards, but we're going to allow you, and that way all 16 teams now have the opportunity to get promoted rather than just 6 of them. So it increases that competition. If it's a you don't meet our regulations issue, loosen the regulations a little bit to make it a little bit easier for those teams to come up. And then once they've come up, they've got some extra income coming in and they can justify investing in that stadium. And even if they get relegated again, well, at least now they've invested in the stadium, and that's going to encourage attendance and all that kind of stuff. And then you're building the culture and you're building the facilities and the value of the club by doing that. So they could just change the regulations and provide some extra income to help with those issues. So those are some issues I see with this pause of Pro-Rel potentially. Again, it hasn't gone through in Mexico, but obviously people are going like, whoa, like, does this mean the United States is doing things the right way? You know, should it impact the conversation about pro-rel for USA, like hashtag pro-rel for USA? I don't think so. I think quite the opposite. My overall thoughts is, in Mexico, football is the sport. They have a footballing culture. And the point I've tried to make throughout these videos, as I'm pointing out things that I think could be fixed or overarching problems or whatever in this How to Fix U.S. Soccer series, and the point I'll continue to make, is the United States Soccer Federation needs to grow the game in the U.S. It's not the sport like it is in Mexico and pretty much every other country, right? The easiest way to encourage that investment is to encourage investment in clubs at all levels. And the easiest way to get investment at clubs at all levels is to provide the opportunity to get promoted and relegated at those levels. So like, hey, congrats, now you could start a 7th division Sunday league team and get promoted to the 6th division, and then get promoted to the 5th division and the 4th. And along the way, you're making money and growing, and the club value's going up and all that kind of stuff. I think you would see an explosion of investment. Would there be teams that flame out? Yes, financially, because of poor ownership. Well, you know, that's called economics, and it works itself out. But overall, I think you'd see a huge influx of investment if you have the opportunity to be promoted. And same thing, if you have the opportunity to be relegated, you're probably not just going to sit on your money and go like, well, you know, we came in 15th out of 16th or whatever, right? Like, okay, guys, what are we going to do next season to make sure we don't go down, right? And the easiest way to do pro-rel isn't just pro-rel. It's mixing pro-rel with paying teams for developing youth players with solidarity payments, like the rest of the world does. Add in transferring players for profit, and you've got like a healthy system. And that's what the US lacks. So Mexico's going like, hey, we want to like kind of stabilize and we want to grow the value of our clubs, but they've already got that culture. So like taking their issues aside and applying it straight to the United States doesn't work, because we don't have a footballing culture, right? There's not a football team in every city in America. And we're big, right? To be fair, but there's not even like a small team in every region, you know, like it's big cities not all the big cities even have an MLS team. So we don't have that culture. So you can't say like, well, this is what they're doing. Like, we have to build the culture. I'm all about building the U.S. men's national team and U.S. women's national team. Well, to do that, you have to have youth development, and to get youth development, you have to have clubs. So that's the point I've been trying to make throughout these videos. So I don't think it's an equal comparison, because it's two completely different problems. So the U.S. doesn't have a football culture, Mexico does. So all this to say, I really hope that the Mexican Football Federation doesn't just straight up pause pro-rel, because I think it's going to have the opposite effect of what they say, although I'm not sure if that's like what they say is what they mean. I think those owners in the top division are like, let's just protect ourselves like MLS has. But it's not going to help those second division clubs invest. You're actually taking away the reason for them to invest if there's no way to get promoted. Because that 4 years could very easily turn into, yeah, we're just going to get rid of pro-rel. And then you've essentially killed off the second division, in my opinion. So I'd love your thoughts on this. Make sure you leave a like and a comment, and we'll see you next time, where we're going to talk about another issue with pro-rel in the United States, and it's based off of the size of our country. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.